Everyone, it is October 30th, 2017. Owen Sound City Council, we started at 6 in a closed session, and we are now moving into the regular meeting. Councillors, are there any additional items? Seeing none, I'll have a couple of things that I've done and a couple of things coming up to cover. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anyone? Seeing none, confirmation of minutes from October 17th.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 17th, 2017 as printed be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Number 6, resolution.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that City Council now go into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
And all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're at number 7 on the agenda. There are no public meetings tonight. There are 4 deputations, starting with Sandy Stevenson from the Owen Sound Community Fund with, I believe, Stuart Reid and others. Welcome. Get you to push that little button there, Stuart, and then the light will come on. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's our great pleasure to bring you a report on behalf of Community Foundation Grey Bruce and the Owen Sound Community Fund. We want to tell you a little bit about the fund's impact in the community this year, and I'm joined tonight by Sandy Stevenson, who's a member of the advisory committee on the fund. Community Foundation Grey Bruce manages 5 community funds that benefit projects by charities and not-for-profits in 5 distinct municipalities: Owen Sound, Meaford, Kincardine, Saugeen Shores, and Grey Highlands. Created in 2009 from proceeds from Owen Sound's 150th anniversary homecoming, the Owen Sound Community Fund exists to enrich the quality of life for the people of the City of Owen Sound by supporting projects for not-for-profits and charitable organizations within the city. This spring, on April the 19th, you might recall, the Owen Sound Community Fund convened a free family event at the Harry Lumley Bayshore, where we are tonight, to honor the amazing achievements of Owen Sound Olympians Larissa Yurku and Jason Crone. The event drew attention to the Community Fund and built awareness of the impact that the fund has in the community. The 2 inspiring athletes, I should say, were available to sign autographs and had a conversation with Fred Wallace of Bayshore Broadcasting about the importance of sport in creating a sense of community belonging. And it was a big undertaking, that wonderful event, and I want to point out the management committee who worked so hard to make it a success. Marion Kepke, our chair, Sandy Stevenson, who's with me tonight, Jan Chamberlain, Donna Beatty, Ruth Henderson, Dave Edwards, as well as former committee members Anne Finley Stewart and Karen Van Zyde-Verden. I'll turn it over to Sandy.
So this is my little
you
clicker.
there.
Okay. Tonight I'm representing the Owen Sound Community Fund, and I'm here to once again raise the profile of the Owen Sound Community Fund here with you, although many of you I know are aware of it, and because normally this is a televised operation, we can get the message out to more people. Many of you have already seen the short video that we're going to show. It was created by John Farmer for this event with Larissa and Jason, and in a very short time it really describes, I think, beautifully the origin of the Owen Sound Community Fund and its potential to help people in our community and special projects and initiatives. So I'm going to push the button and hope it goes. Are they going one more time? 2 times? No. Back one.
Back one.
There it is. Great, thanks.
The Owen Sound Community Fund. Like so many good things, it started with a party. When Owen Sound celebrated our 150th homecoming in 2007, the final proceeds provided a seed fund of permanent money to support future community projects. It was named the Owen Sound Community Fund. The money stayed in the community and grew, invested with the volunteer professionals at the Community Foundation Grey Bruce. When the community fund generates income, We distribute it through grants to support all kinds of local projects that help to make our community great. Whether it's the chance to play in an orchestra with professional musicians for the very first time, 5 days of competition on the fast pitch diamond, quiet support for healthy eating at home, or growing a community garden. The Community Fund is here to make it happen. Everyone can be a part of the Owen Sound Community Fund. You can save up your spare change in a piggy bank, collect money as a class or a club, or leave a legacy to your community through insurance or your estate. You can donate in honor of someone you love, to celebrate a happy occasion, or to thank a special teacher or coach. Every dollar you give will stay in Owen Sound forever, growing along with the donations of your neighbors and supporting organizations and programs that make our city a great place to live. Maybe you're a part of a group with a project that needs a little boost. The Owen Sound Community Fund is here to help and welcomes annual grant applications from any nonprofit organization to fund the great work they do in Owen Sound. The Owen Sound Community Fund is building the community we want for our children and our children's children. Help us create that community today and invest for all of our tomorrows.
Just hold on. So in the spring of, this past spring, we were able to take the interest generated from the Owen Sound Community Fund, which at this time is not a large amount, but it still can have a great impact on projects and initiatives in our community. And tonight we want to just briefly highlight the 3 recipients of our grants in the spring. So we gave out a little over $1,100 from the Owen Sound Community Fund, but I'll highlight each of those for you today. First of all, I think this will happen, Safe and Sound. So Safe and Sound received a total grant of $4,102 from the Community Foundation Grey Bruce, with $400 of that coming from the Owen Sound Community Fund. These funds supported the midday meals program, feeding about 50 people lunch daily, and the food pantry program for people who have run out of food at home. The project ensured that Safe and Sound would function as a drop-in center for 4 hours per day, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And many of you are aware of Safe and Sound and its location in downtown Owen Sound. The second project we were able to sponsor or support was the Owen Sound Emancipation Festival. And many of you are very aware of this festival, which started 162 years ago and celebrated its 155th anniversary this year. The festival received a total grant of $3,000, with $354 coming from the Owen Sound Community Fund. To celebrate the festival this year, the proposal was made to bring author Lawrence Hill to a speaking event to speak, and also photographer Yuri Dojic with his exhibit, North is Freedom. Just make sure we get these. Families whose ancestors came from slavery have been gathering in Owen Sound, as I said, since 1862, and their picnic turned into today's Emancipation Festival. One of Lawrence Hill's best-known works, The Book of Negroes, traces the journey of a West African child placed into slavery and ultimately to freedom, and was made into a mini TV series. Canadian photographer Yuri Dojic explores the northern end of the Underground Railroad, presenting the images of descendants, black and white, young and old. These are grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren of once enslaved African Americans who have contributed to the growth of our great nation. The 18-image photo exhibit was called North is Freedom. And one of the things that's very interesting is that this particular exhibit also was shown in Ottawa during Black History Month through the generous support of the U.S. Embassy in Canada in honor of Canada's 150th anniversary. So we were happy to be able to support in some small way, that particular festival. And finally, our third project that we were able to support, the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority's Riverfest Extravaganza. The Riverfest received a total grant of $3,000 from the Community Foundation. Come on up, Krista. With $400 coming from the Owen Sound Community Fund to prevent this Riverfest Extravaganza in July, and hopefully many of you had a chance to see it. Tonight we have with us Krista McKee, who is recently retired, sadly, from the as Community Relations Coordinator with Grey Sauble, and she'll tell you briefly about Riverfest and how even a small contribution from our fund made the day particularly special for some of those who attended. So, Krista. And then we can do that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sandy. Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor Body. So yes, we were just thrilled to death that we were one of the lucky recipients for our Riverfest event. Oops. Let's see what happens when you let me be in charge. I'll let you do the button. Yep. Fabulous. So there's the one of our guest of honors. They're holding the Owen Sound flag, Mayor Body, in the flotilla that was coming up the Sydenham River. We believe we had approximately 90 boats involved with the flotilla. It was a grand event. It was definitely something to see. But I'm here tonight to talk about the Owen Sound Community Fund grant that we did receive, and it put awesomer, if there was such a word. We were able to purchase some extra equipment so that children, young and old, could get involved with our event. This is the critter dip, so we were able to put together a critter dip on land for those that were just a little squeamish getting in the water, and worked out really well. But we also had those children, young and old, that I've always talked about that had their pant legs rolled up, and they were in there. They found a massive snapping turtle that became part of our critters for the 2 hours. We put them in the little pool there for a while so everyone could see what a snapping turtle looked like. And then there was also the snake display that we were able to book because of the grant that we received. And of course, it's a big hit. And it was also a great learning tool so people could know what snakes live in our watershed. Because a lot of people, there's a misconception of what's good and what's bad. And of course, snakes are all good. You have to get over that. And the kids that took place in putting together their boats, it was just amazing. We had one of our depots was at the Rocking Horse where people could pick up their boats, and they ran out 3 different times where we had to go down and restock them. The kids came with their boats already put together, made, and they had the races, and because of the grant we received from the Owen Sound Community Fund, everyone was able to get a ribbon, so everyone was a winner that attended Riverfest and was involved in getting wet in the Sydenham River. So thank you to this great fund that's out there, because as you can see, the photos that we have certainly make this fund something special and unique to our area that can make an event extra special. So thank you.
Thank you, Krista. When I first spoke to Krista about Riverfest, she was so enthusiastic. I knew she had to come and chat with you about the effects of the fund. So the message I just want to leave with you tonight about the Owen Sound Community Fund is that our fund is small, but it is a fund that, if we grow it, can do many things for years to come for the people of our community, of the Owen Sound community. So if there are ideas about, if you hear from people and they want to make a difference, it's a wonderful fund. The back of the little cards we left on your desk about Larissa and Jason have a really succinct description of what the fund is all about, I think. So if somebody says to you, what is that Owen Sound Community Fund? It's in a nutshell on the back of that card. So thank you for having us here tonight. I think Stuart has a final word, and we'll close off our presentation.
Thank you, Sandy. Also on your table tonight, we brought a little bit of kindness with us because this coming Friday, November the 3rd, is Random Act of Kindness Day across Ontario. Community foundations across this region and right across Canada, for that matter, are making kindness a priority. The little blue cards or green cards that are attached to your chocolates are for you to pass forward. If you do something kind for someone, you can place the card, leave the card with them to remind them to do something nice for someone else, and hopefully that drop in the pond will create ripples of kindness right across Grey Bruce on Friday. We are working with all 5 of our community funds to activate activities, and there's going to be some exciting things happening in our city on Friday, and also a regal presence on Open Line in the morning at 9 o'clock that I think you should all tune in for. And we hope that kindness will be on your priority list on Friday as well. I want to thank Sandy very much and Krista for their presentation. And of course, we're very happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none. Thank you to the 3 of you for your presentation. I noted when I was at Grey Roots the other day that the photo exhibit is still up on the wall there, so it can be seen, and it's some amazing photography. And I certainly enjoyed my trip up the river. All the years that I've lived here, I'd never gone up the river through parts of it, and it's really beautiful. So I'm hoping that it happens again next year and that others will be able to take place. And I think you said that if we were looking online for communityfoundationgraybruce.com, we could find out how to donate, and
Yes.
there'd probably be tax receipts and things between now and the end of the year when we're thinking about charities to donate to, that the money will stay in the community and be spent in the... I'm not putting words into your mouth or anything, am I?
You're doing a great job.
Great, thank you very
Well
much.
done.
Thanks.
Thank
Peter, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, one of the things a lot of people don't realize is it's the interest on the fund that goes into the grants, and the capital remains intact, and I think that's really important. So it's a living legacy.
Thank you. So if I can move on to 8B, Emily Powell, Health Promoter, Grey Bruce Health Unit. Welcome.
Thank you. I need some help, yeah. Sorry. You tricked me.
Okay, so you're actually,
I have this one here. Yep, sorry.
okay, so the next one.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll go over there and press it.
Thanks. Right. Thank you. Thank you for the help with the computer as well. So I'm Emily Powell. I work for the Grey Bruce Health Unit in the prevention of falls. We have a group that meets called the Grey Bruce Fall Prevention and Intervention Program, which we're very lucky to have one of the counselors sitting here today join us on that, which is what brought me here today. First thing I wanted to share that I think is very interesting was many of you were probably not excited to do your census last year, but I was very excited for people to do their census last year, because when we have that data from the census, it tells us so much about what's happening in our community. So we know that arguably the first baby boomers turned 65 in 2011. And for the first time in history, seniors outnumber children in Canada. The census report shared that almost 17% of the Canadian population is 65 or over, with projections into 2061 of around 24 all the way up to 28%. In Grey and Bruce today, we are at 24.1% already. So our projections are likely to grow even further. And for those of you who know much about cottage country or chalet country, you know that there's maybe some people that are considering selling their homes in the city to move up here. So we may have an even larger spike. So we are an older population in our area. We also have some of the highest rates of falls. So our emergency department visit rates are 72% higher in Grey and Bruce overall, and those range from about 17% higher among the oldest adults to 124% higher among youth aged 15 to 24. And those numbers are age standardized, so it's not because we have more older adults that we have more falls. They've actually accounted for the age groups. 2 to 3 people will be hospitalized each day for a fall in Grey and Bruce, and a third of people who are admitted to long-term care are there because of a fall. Also in our region, each month between 2 and 3 people die from fall-related injuries. So everyone asks why our rates of falls are higher when they hear that they're high. For one thing, the rural context increases your risk of a fall. A lot of people think that living rurally makes people more active, but in actual fact, if you live really far from your work, then you go into your driveway, get in your car, drive to work. And so if you live in the city, you actually sometimes have more mobility that you're required to do in terms of walking around. The risk factors for each age group are different, and there are other things in our area that, such as alcohol use and sedentary lifestyle, that contribute to your risk of a fall. Some of the best things you can do to prevent a fall, and many people don't know, is that many falls are preventable. Having had a fall in the last year is one of the #1 risk factors that you'll have another fall, and there are lots of resources out there to try and prevent further falls. A lot of people are afraid of telling someone they have a fall, thinking that people are out there to take their license away and rush them off to long-term care, but that's not the case. There's lots of people that are out there trying to look at the risk factors for an individual and reduce those risk factors. We recently created a brochure on safe winter walking. We have a lot of falls on sidewalks in the city as well, people going out when it's icy, and there hasn't been enough time yet to clear the snow and ice and salt as well. And then for people who want more information on preventing a fall, there are some websites. There's Finding Balance Ontario has loads of resources for older adults or people who are looking to prevent a fall with people in their lives. And you can also go to the Healthline or 211, and starting on November 1st, it's Fall Prevention Month, when lots of organizations in Ontario get together to raise awareness of preventing falls. So, thank you for having me.
Questions? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship, and thanks to you to Ms. Powell for this presentation. This is one of the committees that Council appoints a member to each year. I'm the member for this current term. And as you see the stats that are attached in the presentation went through, there are some rather alarming statistics for this region. But I guess if I could just get you to reiterate, Emily, so somebody's hearing this at home, seeing this, your presentation, they've maybe had a fall, they're dizzy, their medication's wrong. What should they do? They're at home right now listening to this, they recognize some of the things you've said. What would be the best course of action for them right now?
So you mentioned that something about their medications. Of course, the Ontario government funds medication reviews for anyone who is over 65, has a chronic illness, or takes 3 or more medications. But I happen to call all the pharmacies in our area and know that any of them will do it for anyone, even if they don't meet those criteria. So a medication review, we have really high rates of prescription use amongst older adults in our area. And there are multiple medications that we know increase your risk of a fall. So somebody who has some medications and some dizziness absolutely needs to look at their medications and have a pharmacist review their medications with them. A lot of people assume that their physician knows exactly what they're on, but it's actually not always in the front of their mind, and so heading to your pharmacy to have your medication reviewed would be the best. We also want people to have their vision checked, and we want people to exercise. And that doesn't mean, extremely vigorous physical activity, but doing something, gardening, attending a free exercise class, doing something online, any way that you can exercise. We're also we printed exercises at the kitchen sink, which is a booklet with several exercises that people can do that are proven to reduce your risk of falls. And we're going to set up a display at the Owen Sound Library after the Halloween display comes down. And we'll have some of those there and some of the other resources. So they should head to the Owen Sound Library after Halloween.
Thank you.
For one thing.
Councillor Lemon?
Yeah, you just made something you said. You said that our prescription use in this area is higher than the provincial average? Or
Certain medications are higher in this area. Older adults are taking, on average, at least 6 medications. And there are certain medications that we know increase your risk of a fall.
But what I was going to say is that as a result of the fact that we are at a much higher percentage of seniors than the provincial average, ergo seniors take more medication. So yes, there'd be more up here, but that may be a function of the number of seniors we have in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be not as bad a picture as it looks on the surface.
That may be for that one issue, but our rates of falls and our rates of hospitalizations are much higher. And in fact, one of the very alarming ones is amongst youth, which is 125% higher than the rest of the province. That's pretty alarming to me. So that's youth, age 15 to 24, 125% higher age, and that's been standardized for population and compared to Ontario. So we have high rates of falls. We have people who are working on farms in our area. We have people who are not necessarily as active as they need to be, and we have people who are potentially taking medications that are increasing the risk of falling. We also have potentially some problems with alcohol use that certainly can contribute to a fall.
Go to Councillor Gregg.
Thanks for this, Emily. It's for someone who lost their grandmother because she fell on her way to catch the city bus several years ago. I understand the importance to seniors, especially in the community. I just also want to mention a couple of years ago, right in front of Fulford Hardware downtown, nice summer day, I saw a lady walking with her family of 4, probably 40-ish, and she wiped out 180 degrees just walking on the sidewalk in front of me. And I thought, wow, did she ever go down? But I know from experience that footwear was an issue in her case, and I wonder if maybe that's not a nugget you can include in to some of your literature and informing people. Having secure footwear, maintaining good proprioception for so many people is extremely important, because it is definitely a contributor for a lot of people falling. And you just think of the women wearing the nice high heels and boots, and when they step down it makes that nice click, but they're not feeling the ground very well, and there's someone that's quite unstable when they're walking. So there's just someone else to maybe include in the future.
Absolutely. There's a website called Rate My Treads where you can look at Toronto Rehab Institute actually put it together, where they have a place called Winter Lab where they create ice and then they can change the angle of the floor, and they have people walk across, obviously harnessed so they don't become injured, and they rate the treads. And when they first came out with this, they have a 5 snowflake system, and no one got more than 1 snowflake. And I thought, well, this isn't very useful. People are going on here, and none of the shoes get more than 1 snowflake anyway. Well, the one women's shoe that got 1 snowflake sold out And this year, 2 of the shoes have been given 2 snowflakes. So we're starting to see that the industry is responding to this Rate My Treads website, and they're starting to say, we got to do something to make our treads better so that we can get on this list. And so they're experimenting with things like putting fabric and putting glass into, not sharp glass that would hurt you, but micro fragments of glass into the sole that will help to make it stickier.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you very much. I just want to go along with what Emily is saying, having sitting on the Board of Health and getting the same information year after year. Her figures are right. And a lot of it has to do with, well, we have a lot of senior people living in the area, and there's a lot of pride. Senior people don't like to use walkers. They should be using them, and it would save a lot of falls. I know I live in a condo, and in my own condo, in the last, I'm going to say, month and a half, we've had 3 very serious falls. Just simply walking up the street or whatever. In fact, we've had 4 of them, and it's just happening, Peter. And I often say if they'd make those walkers more sexy looking, more people would use them.
We do see some people
your
who...
figures are right, Emily.
Thank you. We do see some people who like the urban poles, which are more like a cross-country ski pole. When they probably maybe need a little bit more, they're still a little bit more accepting of those poles. But we do find that when someone has a fall, they're usually not simply walking. They're walking, they're thinking about something else, they're rushing, they're quick grabbing something on the way out, and it's those combinations that just come together. And so we try to have people look at all the different risk factors. Some you can't get rid of. You may be on a medication that increases your risk of a fall, and there's nothing you can do about that, but you can work on your balance. You can take a Tai Chi class or a yoga class or start doing a few little exercises at home so that if you have a near slip, you might be more likely to catch yourself. You can wear proper footwear, and you can watch your step, and maybe not go out when it's a total sheet of ice is the other thing that we...
Try telling people that.
I know.
So Emily, I got to tell you, I'm one of your statistics. Inadvertence, active, looking the wrong way over my shoulder, talking to somebody while walking ahead, fell, dislocated my shoulder, ended up in the hospital, still waiting for surgery. Exactly what you're talking about. Inadvertence, and footwear was fine, but stupidity
just like
on
that,
my
your
part, just
lifestyle
like
is...
that. And it's a real pain in the shoulder, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you
Thanks
for having me.
Bringing this information to us.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jessica Linthorn and Tanya Shute from the Bayshore Race.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. Actually, Portia is here as well. Portia, you can stand up at the front and wave if you'd like. Portia's here today because she is one of our smallest 5K runners. So I'm here today to talk about the Bayshore Race, and I wanted to start off by introducing Portia because that was a big accomplishment for her, and she's one of the reasons why we do this race. So my name's Jessica Linthorn, and I'm a race co-director with the Bayshore Race. I'm joined with Greg Nickel, my race co-director, and Portia, of course, and Portia's mom, Jamie, is here too for our cheering squad, and Jamie's also a racer. And Tanya, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening, and I'm Tanya Shute. I'm a volunteer with the Bayshore Race, and part of my role is actually to coordinate the volunteers from year to year with the Bayshore Race, which sits at around 70 volunteers.
This way. There you go.
So thank you for having us back here again. We're going to just tell you a little bit about the race. This was our 8th annual Bayshore Race. We do have a power walk or run. We do a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K. We do kids 1K, 5K fun walk. And just this past year, the funds that were raised at the Bayshore Race went to improve diagnostic testing. So you see a nice picture there in the corner. That would be an example of some of the equipment that was purchased: ECG loop recorders, EEG head box, ultrasound probe reprocessing units. And the race date from this year was on August 27th, 2017. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the race, this is our map. We start right here at the Bayshore Community Center and we head north. We have our certain points along the race where we would turn around, say for the kids walk the 1K. We have a 5K turnaround, which is just up at Dance Makers or the Owen Sound Fitness and Training. We do have our 10K turnaround, and then we head straight to Leith, and that's where we do our half marathon turnaround.
Thanks. So as mentioned, the Bayshore Race is a fundraising event for the Owen Sound Hospital Foundation. So we have some really good news that we wanted to come and share with Council. So our 8th annual race was the largest to date. There's a few numbers up here. You'll see we had 558 participants this year. That's a 33% increase from 2016. 68% of our registrations are coming from outside of the city of Owen Sound. So we know N4K is at Owen Sound, so that number is huge. That's significant. That's telling us that 68% of people that are coming to this facility are coming into the area from outside of the city. This year we raised $45,000 for the Hospital Foundation, and new this year we had cash prizing. So if you broke a record, we handed over cash, and we had 3 of those records broken. So the times are up there, and they're just like incredible times. But worth noting, Erin Chenoweth, you'll see from California, and that's not a mistake. She did come from California. She happened to be in the Toronto area, got looped in some of our strategic social media posts, said, hey, how far is Owen Sound? We said 2.5 hours. She said, no problem, I'm on my way. So she came up, she broke the record, we gave her some cash, and she followed up with an email. And I almost should have included some of the language that she shared, but the highlight of the email was, hey, I'm back in California, and if you don't believe it, I do miss Owen Sound. Cool, that's great. So, you know, we'll see. Might have been a one-time thing for her, but to have that kind of recognition and that kind of, she's been in a number of races. As you can see, she is an elite runner, and she recognized our event as one of the best that she's been at. So that was great news. So as I mentioned, participants are coming from out of town. Lots of calls this year, lots of emails inquiring on accommodations. Other events that are happening, restaurants. Our event is late August. There's lots happening in Owen Sound in August, so we're happy to share other things to check out. We often refer people to the accommodation, the tourism city website, to make sure that they're getting the best information from the best source. And the sports tourism, just as a theme, we know that this event and others in the community are benefiting our local economy. People are coming up, they're staying, they're eating, they're shopping, and at the end of the day, this event has raised over $284,000. So another item we wanted to bring to Mayor, yourself, and members of council this evening is that we understand that there's some plans for reconstruction on our route. We are reaching out to the operations committee. I got an email today confirming the November 23rd meeting. So Greg and myself are going to talk to the operations committee about working together on that scheduling. Certainly we recognize the infrastructure that has to happen. And you'll see the map here. We understand that it's going to affect that portion of our route. We wanted to just bring this forward and acknowledge that we understand this is being planned, and our event is scheduled for August 26th of next year. A couple of numbers that did come to light in 2014, so this is just kind of giving you some examples. In 2014, we had 430 registrations. 2015, there was some construction with the new wastewater plant, and our registration dropped, so it dropped down to 312. There was construction, we had to come downtown, we couldn't offer the half marathon, so that certainly caused a bit of a back for us. That was 2015, so now 2017 we've had this success. So we're seeing this momentum coming back, we are pushing it forward. The more successful we are, the more successful the community is from an economic perspective, but ultimately, and the reason why we do this, is there's more success for the hospital.
So we just want to take the opportunity again to say thank you. We know that the Bayshore Race is growing. People are trusting the brand, they're enjoying the experience, they're telling their friends, and they're coming back. We're very proud to offer a scenic route, so it's a really nice race route, and I've been told it's fast as well, so it's got that going for it. The Bayshore Community Center has been a fantastic venue. When we get our feedback from the racers, when we ask our feedback from volunteers, consistently we've got many compliments on the space. It's always clean, it's secure, it's accessible, parking is great. So it's really, a great thing about the race that stands out. As Jess was saying, that we refer our visitors, right, part of their race registration is that we let them know about accommodations and other things they can do in the area, and they're always wanting to ask more questions about accommodations, so each year we're fielding more questions about that. And a big thank you as well to city staff. Right from our planning, right from when we do feedback and evaluations, we're already starting to do planning for the next year. And that includes reaching out to city staff to look at things like road closures and the race day event, deliveries, permits, and cross-promotion on the city website. And we just have had a very positive experience, and it's helped make the race a success.
So that's it from us. We are more than happy to answer any questions or provide any more information that we might have.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Travis? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Jess, Tanya, Mr. Nicola, we're always very fortunate that there's people like yourselves that are in the community that are helping move kind of events like this forward. So on behalf of all of council, I'd like to say thank you for organizing this event. Also, thank you for coming in and doing the presentation. Some of the figures that you presented tonight are actually astonishing to see that in this past year, $45,000 alone from this last run is going towards the Hospital Foundation, which is obviously something that's incredibly important in our community. So I know you're coming to Operations Committee, and I'm sure we'll be trying to find a solution to make everything work so it's mutually beneficial for both of us. So once again, thank you, and keep good luck in the future.
Thank you.
And thanks, Portia, wherever she is.
Yes, this is Portia's first council meeting. Can you believe that? I couldn't believe that. She's never been before.
Good.
So, and like I started off our presentation, Portia really is the reason that we do this. And I know my children, and I need to give them a shout out because they're at home watching, but they partake in the event. They understand why we are involved as a family with this event. And certainly my family's experience and my own experience with our local hospitals is the reason why we all do this together to raise this money.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman? Oh.
Just quickly, I wanted to echo Councillor Dodd's words for thanking you for doing all of this. I want to thank Portia for coming, because usually Councillor Dodd's the youngest one at these meetings. And you're beating him by a few years, but if... Not too many. Not too many. Thank you again.
So Councillor Dodd was your age when Councillor Lemon was his age. Councillor Gregg, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Barry. Just a further tip of the cap to you. Your numbers of 33% growth are actually contrary even in the industry. A lot of races are seeing decline to 20% in the last 2 years. So that's just a further testimony how people are enjoying coming to the area and to keep up the good work. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So 8D, our last deputation is from Linda Miles Gallinger, Chair of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery Board. There we go. Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Body, councillors, and city staff. I've come here before you on several occasions in the past, and each of those occasions was in relationship to the plans around incorporation and expansion of our gallery. Those plans were with the best intentions for the Owen Sound Collection, the gallery, in this city. You will have learned through the minutes of the Tom Board in your council package that I'm here to report the likelihood of a year-end deficit. We cannot confirm the amount at this time. The board learned from our business administrator of the deficit on October the 10th. Since then, we've had 2 special meetings to put in place an action plan to reduce the deficit and to bring forward a carefully crafted 2018 budget. At each of these special meetings, city staff attended to help explain the situation, the reasons, and the ramifications. As you know, a great deal of time, money, and energy has been expended in an effort to realize an incorporated and expanded gallery. We are on the cusp of incorporating and receiving charitable status from the CRA. However, the board now realizes we were moving ahead based on the assumption of sound financial management of the existing gallery. What has transpired with this deficit is a tragedy. Clearly, the board recognizes the seriousness of the situation. We understand that a step back is required, and we understand that we will need to work closely with the city to ensure strong financial management and long-term revenue sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Thomas?
I'd just like to thank Ms. Miles Gallinger for coming to present that information to us. I know it's been a tumultuous month at the Tom, to say the very least, and I'd also like to acknowledge the other board members who are here tonight in support of the statement. Thank you.
Others? Councillor O'Leary?
Linda, thanks for coming tonight. A year ago, the deficit was 85,000, correct?
Yep.
And we took that out of the reserves, and at that time, we knew that the reserves were finished. We didn't have any. So we were assured that changes were going to be made to make sure it didn't happen again. What were the policy changes, or was there policy changes for 2017?
I wouldn't say there was policy changes, but we did take some steps to ensure that there wouldn't be a deficit.
Okay, I also want to echo Richard's comments too. Thanks for coming, and I know that you're just a volunteer, tough assignment tonight, but at least you didn't come yourself. Glad to see that there's some support here for you tonight too. Thank you.
And others? Seeing none. Thank you, Linda. Thank you to the board that all are voluntary, or volunteers. It is a very difficult thing for all of us, and we're going to have to work our way through it at the council level as well as at the board level, and figure out how we go forward from this. Thank you. Number 9 is public question period. If there's anyone here that wishes to ask a question, now is the time. Does Portia have a question? Seeing none. Thank you. Correspondence received. We have no correspondence which we need to consider. Down to 11A, which is reports. Number 1 is from the purchasing agent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just scroll down here.
Oh, did you want to go?
Sure. Sorry.
Staff fighting over who wants to give the report?
I'd gladly give up the task, Your Worship, if that was council's desire, but no, I'm the guy who drew the short straw tonight. After the 2016-2017 winter season, staff reviewed the contracts for winter maintenance of our facilities as it relates to the parking lots and some of the pedestrian accesses. On the basis of that review, there was a decision made to extend 3 of the current agreements, one with Freeman the Treeman, one with John Bates Roofing, and the third with the Ground Guys, to look after a number of our water and wastewater treatment and distribution and collection facilities. It was felt at that time that there was merit to go back to the market, and to that end, tender T17Z.2 was called on August 25th and closed on September 21st. 7 bids were received, however, one was deemed to be non-compliant, that being from Brown Property Maintenance. And the other 6 compliant bidders are listed in the report. On the basis of an evaluation by staff, staff are recommending that awards be given to Blue Water Landscaping and Construction for carrying out winter maintenance on the Bayshore Community Center, this facility, as well as the Julie MacArthur Regional Recreation Center. Edgewood Group, Inc., to look after the Owen Sound Police Station and parking lot, the Owen Sound Animal Shelter, Municipal Parking Lot 5, Municipal Parking Lot 9, and the Owen Sound Wastewater Treatment Plant. And finally, that the third series of contracts be awarded to Freeman the Treeman for the Genoa landfill site, Scopus parking lot, and the Scopus parking lot. Council will note that there has been a significant jump in the estimated cost. These are estimates only based on the figures supplied by the bidders and the average number of events that we've experienced over the past several years. But it's based on those numbers, we're looking at somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 increase as a minimum.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon?
Thank you, Your Worship. Why are we cleaning snow out at the Genoa landfill site, which is closed? Or why would we?
Through you, Your Worship, the Genoa landfill site is where we have to collect leachate. That leachate is produced on an annual basis, and we have to be able to gain access to the chamber in order to pump it out on a regular basis. Sorry, I didn't get
He asked even in the winter.
Yes, absolutely.
Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Director, the Bayshore Community Centre has been awarded to Blue Water Landscape following Council's approval of that. Who clears the lot at the Active Lifestyle Centre? Is that included with the Bayshore?
Yes, Your Worship, that is my understanding.
And the steps leading up to the door and the walkway, is that included as well?
Well, it will be. It has been done by our staff in the past. I'm getting. Are you?
Perhaps I could just clarify for the Director of Operations, so that falls under the responsibility of the Bayshore staff. So the contractor does the parking lot, and that was included in the scope of work, but then our staff do those steps and do the snow and salt them.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Gregg?
Just move approval of the recommendations.
Thank you. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Number 2 is report from Human Resources with regard to compensation review.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will present this report. Council will recall through the 2017 budget process that we approved undertaking a comprehensive compensation review. This was a capital budget item. In April 2017, that RFP was awarded to Ward and Updegrove Consultants. They are somewhat regional HR consultants. These reviews are necessary to ensure that the city's compensation practices are fair and equitable, that legislative requirements are met, and that the city remains competitive with other municipalities and organizations when it comes to our hiring tactics. The compensation review will involve the following 3 components. An external market review or external equity. This was last undertaken in 2001. Paying employees competitively amongst a group of comparable organizations is really what we're looking for. The external market review is being finalized right now for the city. Comparator municipalities were selected based on size, municipal operations, and other factors such as average household income. The next aspect of the study will be an internal equity review, and this ensures equal pay for comparable positions within the organization. Involved in this process will be a thorough job evaluation process where each position is assigned a value to the organization and paid correspondingly. And then finally, we'll do our pay equity maintenance exercise, and this is in order to meet the obligations of the Pay Equity Act of Ontario. Pay equity is an equal pay for work of equal value and is in place to address closing gender wage gaps. The full compensation review will determine where the city is positioned with all three of these equities and provide recommendations to establish pay equity. The compensation review includes non-union positions and both of the CUPE 1189 and 443 positions. The final deliverable will involve a recommendation of a mathematically derived pay grid. The results of the compensation review can be used to assist the city in negotiations with its union groups going forward. So Warden Updegrove is currently working on finalizing the results of the external market review. Once we have the results of that review, we will work to ensure we have up-to-date job evaluations for positions to establish internal equity. Staff and Warden Updegrove hope to have this completed by early 2018. And the last step will be a maintenance exercise to confirm statutory pay equity, and it's expected to be completed by spring of 2018. The specific costs of implementing a recommended pay grid adjustment are unknown at this time. Estimated costs will be coming forward late in November 2017, and further information relating to costs will be included in the 2018 and 2019 budget presentations for council approval. So you'll certainly be hearing more about this as we move further through the process.
Good, thank you. Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you very much. Just a question. We hired these people in April, but they haven't done anything yet?
They've done the external market review portion. So we've just gotten those results.
It's taken quite a long time, hasn't it?
It is a long process. A lot of this involves gathering information and analyzing it from other municipalities. So anytime we're looking for information from external groups that don't necessarily have a stakeholder in our report, it can take longer.
Others? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just move the recommendation.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Number 3 is report from City Clerk with regard to bylaw enforcement policy. Following up.
Yes, through your worship. A bylaw policy was presented to council at the last meeting, and council requested that the policy be reviewed. There have been slight modifications to the wording of the policy for clarification purposes, but is still reflective of current practice. There was some confusion with the clause pertaining to inquiries. The policy now uses the word question rather than inquiry. The policy distinguishes between a question and complaint because they are handled differently. If someone calls with a question, bylaw will answer the question. If the question alerts bylaw to a safety concern, they will then do an inspection. When a complaint is lodged with bylaw, they log the complaint and do an inspection and any other necessary follow-up. The other area of concern from the last meeting was pertaining to a situation where ownership cannot be determined. I should mention that this is extremely rare for bylaw not to determine ownership. However, in the rare occasion that it cannot be determined, bylaw may assign responsibility to the property owners abutting the subject of the violation, or they may decline to respond if it should be more correctly resolved through civil court. The recommendation in the report is to bring forward a bylaw to approve the policy and review the policy in a year.
Thank you. Questions, discussion, motions? Councillor Lemon?
I have a great deal of difficulty with the neighbors being responsible for a piece of property which they have no interest in or cannot be established. And that's the one, the rest of it is great, but that's the one part that I really feel is totally unjust, that I can be responsible for a piece of property of which I have no interest.
I'm going to go back to the clerk. I think she had a pretty good example in her report.
If you look at the diagram I've attached to the report, it sort of explains the situation. For instance, if you have a hedge that's on two properties that neither one are determining ownership, but it's right on the property line, they would then send a letter to both property owners to say, you know, the hedge needs to be maintained, and it would be up to just the property owners that are abutting the subject of the violation to look after. It's not everybody in the neighborhood, it's just where that subject of the violation is.
Okay, the reason I'm asking this is there are lanes in the downtown, which or at one point, we weren't sure who owned what. And in that case, a property owner who may have no interest in the lane whatsoever could effectively be responsible for maintenance of that lane. He may not even have an access to that lane.
I think you're interpreting it to such a point that it wouldn't, we'd get spanked so hard in court if we tried that, Councillor Lemon. We're talking about fence lines, hedge lines, trees.
Okay.
Two properties abutting each other, and there's something in between, you can't tell where the hedge is. We're not talking about getting someone to take over a lot or a piece of property that's adjoining them that isn't their property. That's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted.
yeah. Deputy Mayor Wright?
Yeah, I just have just one question, and it's the alternatively, bylaw enforcement may decline to respond to a complaint should the matter be correctly resolved through civil court. And I certainly understand that because we've had some of those situations. But the bylaw enforcement officer will tell them that that is a civil matter. That will be what will happen, right?
That is correct,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
Others? Councillor Kepke?
I just wanted to thank the clerk for doing this report and further explaining those parts to us. It's much clearer now, and I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. So it's been moved. Any other discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Brianna. Number 4 is Legislative Services Coordinator, appreciation for 2017 volunteers.
Yes, through your worship. Each year, council recognizes the volunteers who serve on city committees throughout the year. Last year, the mayor or designate attended a meeting of each committee to personally thank the volunteers. At this same meeting, light refreshments were provided to the committee members. Feedback from last year's event was positive, and staff are recommending that the same approach be used to recognize the 2017 volunteers.
Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Did we give them all a mug? I think we gave them all something, didn't we? A mug or something?
It was the year before.
But it was year before. Oh, okay. Well,
Councillor Lemon is moving the recommendation. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. I encourage council to try and, when did we go, December? Or did we wait to, yeah. I encourage council to try and write down the dates of the and times of the committees, even if you're not on it, so you can join me when we go. It's nice if we're all there. Thanks. Number 5, Director of Corporate Services with regard to Housing Company Construction Financial Loan.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Owen Sound Housing Corporation has requested a loan advance in the amount of $800,000. There is a letter attached to this report. Council will recall back in February that we did pass $865,000 through a loan to the corporation. They are now securing mortgage financing through CMHC. However, due to some timing differences, they do require the additional $800,000 now, and the original loan will be repaid as soon as the mortgage is secured with CMHC. So this is there will be a short term where both loans are outstanding. However, we are expecting the repayment by May of next year. And this will assist with construction financing going forward.
Good, thank you. Councillor Lemon?
Yes, Your Worship, I would move the recommendation. The project is moving ahead very nicely. A number of the units already have their shingles on their roofs and are being closed in so they can complete work during the winter.
Good, thank you. So it's moved. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thanks. Number 6 is Deputy Mayor Wright giving us an update from County Council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I do have a little report. The county will continue to operate under the Committee of the Whole structure, which means that we will just have the 2 meetings a month, and other than any additional ad hoc committee meetings. We have the council meeting at the beginning from 9:30 to 10, and then we start the committee of the whole for the rest of the day. So that will continue. There will not be a directed election for the warden. It was only supported by one municipality. ATVs will have access to most of Grey County roads a half hour before, up until a half hour before. Just a minute now, I better read that so I get it right. We didn't do the time thing. I know that Owen Sound requested that we put time on it, but the reason we didn't was due to the variation in sunrise and sunset. From April to November, specific times are not being recommended. But it's from half hour before sunrise and half hour after sunset, with the exception of 2nd Avenue West in Owen Sound from 10th Street West to 14th Street West, and from 2nd Avenue East in Owen Sound from 1st Street Southwest to 3rd Street A West in Owen Sound. You cannot use an ATV. Other than that, all county roads are open to ATVs. They haven't had any problems with them, so. The Tourism Advisory Committee has recommended and encouraging the adoption of license plates for cyclists, and that revenue from anything that comes from the selling of licenses to be spent on cycling things such as paving shoulders. That's something that they've asked the county to support, and the county does support it. Economic development, we had an excellent report on the 2017 economic development that went on, and it's just thriving up there. It really is. Economic development at the county is, they're doing a tremendous job. Savannah and Steve and their team are just really going, and this document is put out. The mayor has made copies, and you made copies of these for everybody? Well, I think we should. I'll leave my copy, and I think we should make copies. It's well worth it. But these are the highlights for 2017. They've had, under the business visitation program, they've had 2 breakfast mixers, 2 creative mixers, the Planning 101, the buying and selling business, doing business with government, the key initiatives of SWIFT, the network of SWIFT, which is really moving along really well. The barriers that were called are transportation, housing, childcare, and training. The key initiatives, so they had regional job fair, employee one survey, regional skills training, trades and an innovation center, and key initiatives for agriculture, farms, and local food. They had a local food strategy, updated statistics, agri-food asset map, regional priorities merged, the municipal partnership fund, and then they go to what's next in 2018. And I'm not going into that because we're hoping that both Savannah and Steve will make a visit to the council, to a council meeting, and talk to us about what's going on in 2018. But it's pretty exciting stuff. And so we may get you a copy of this so that you will have it. And that's my report.
Any questions? Good, thank you very much. So we're down to 11B, which is the consent agenda items.
Yes, through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening is minutes for receipt from the Tom Thompson Art Gallery Board, Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation, and Owen Sound Housing Company. A flag request was received from the Zonta Club. Bergeron Automotive, located at 701 2nd Ave East, received its business license, and there's correspondence received which is presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 11B6.
Good, thank you. Councilor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that City Council hereby receives items 11B1 to 11B6 on the consent agenda dated October 30th, 2017.
Thank you, and all in favor? That is carried. Looking at number 1 is the Tom Thompson Art Gallery Board minutes from October 10th and October 19th. Councilor Thomas.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. We had the presentation earlier from the board chair, and I have nothing further to add.
Okay, now, is there any discussion we want to have around those minutes at this time? I'm seeing none.
No, I think, I suspect.
Maybe ask our city manager, Mr. Ritchie, where do we go forward with this, and what's city staff going to do? I think we need some kind of...
Certainly, Your Worship. City staff will be working very closely with certainly members of the board who are here this evening, and particularly staff that are at the Art Gallery, to ensure that, number one, that the gallery proceeds and is, certainly it's a valuable asset to the community, and it will be we'll be working diligently to make sure that that continues in the coming weeks and months, and a further report will be coming to council on exactly the financial situation for 2017 once we have that.
Do we know? We really don't know when that will come?
At this time, I can't say exactly, Worship, but I would certainly hope it'll be back to you before the year is out.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from those? Seeing none, okay, thank you. We've got minutes from Municipal Nonprofit Housing and the Owen Sound Housing Company Limited. Deputy Mayor Wright?
I believe that the minutes are straightforward. I don't have anything to add to them at all.
Okay,
Unless
thank you.
anyone has any questions.
Seeing none, good, thank you. So we got minutes of boards and committees for approval, starting off with accommodation ad hoc, City Hall accommodation. Oh, Councillor Gregg.
If I could just bring up, thanks, Mayor Boddy, there is a item in the information package I wondered if I could just bring to council's attention.
Please, go ahead.
Would be interested in supporting the resolution, the correspondence from Township of North Frontenac, request for support regarding Bill 148. Last council meeting, we had a report come forward that stated we could look at potentially upwards of $600,000 to increase fire costs due to the on-call. This is a similar impact because of scheduling and on-call, and it's hitting the rural municipality with their volunteer fire department, but I think it's worth supporting. I've been on the AMO website, and yes, AMO's hoping for an exemption, but I don't see any harm in supporting this.
So your motion is, oh, hold on. Councillor McManaman has a question.
Well, just, I might, and I agree with the councillor's concern. I'm just not sure, perhaps it'd be better to send a letter specific to our concern, because this is dealing with volunteer firefighters, and ours is slightly different than that, and just to make sure that our point is being made about the on-call situation. Just a suggestion. Not saying maybe we don't support this too, but maybe our own letter should go on our own specific topic. Just a suggestion.
Wondering, Councillor Gregg, if you will be back here November 20th. I don't think they're making any decisions in Queen's Park in between, or are they?
This is the week that the legislation is in front of committee, subcommittee, and I believe it ends November 3rd. The first, second, I think it is this Friday, subcommittee hearings end. And I agree with the Councillor McManaman. Both are just speaking to the one component of that, and it's the scheduling clause and the impact of the on-call. So, yeah,
I'm wondering.
I'm positive either way.
I'll maybe come back to you at other business. You got paper there? I wonder if you can scribble down something. Looking at the one you've got in front of you, scribble down something that's sort of appropriate for us, and then we'll come back to it and look at it at that point. That gives you a minute to pull the wording together, if that works. Thanks. So where were we? 11C, minutes of City Hall Accommodation Ad Hoc Committee. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Worship. We had a great meeting last Tuesday of the Ad Hoc Committee. Before the meeting, the committee had a chance to tour the site, and I have asked that we have a few pictures from the tour scrolling on the screen as I review the minutes. These pictures are also on the city's social media site. The president of Cy Rowe, Roger Rowe, the general contractor, and Alara Congatz, the architect, attended the committee meeting as well, along with committee and staff. Kristen Schreider had prepared a great report that summarized all the background with the project, everything from the contract with the architect, the lease for our temporary space, the budget, the authority and process for change orders, and the project schedule. For each of these items, there is then a current or updated status. In her last two reports, Kristen indicated some concern with project timing, and it has been confirmed that by CIRO that they are 3 months behind. The minutes go into detail, but the two big items are the additional abatement. There is more asbestos and more mold once we get into the demolition phase. The second delay, and a big part of the change orders and an additional cost, was the discovery of the debris from the old City Hall that burned in 1964 and the depths of the footings under this part of the building. The debris had to be removed, and in the east end, we had to underpin the existing foundation and pour a new foundation. The pictures on the screen show some of the progress made in the last month. From the street, it is hard to appreciate the work. The work has been things like the masonry restoration, membrane and backfill at the south end near Heroes Square, the plumbing rough-in in the basement, heating pipe roughed in and on all levels, fan coil unit installation, electrical rough-in at all levels, tie-in the roof leaders to the storm system, interior wall studding and partitions, sump pump caisson installation, work on the new elevator, and infill of floors. So many of these items are hard to see, but are integral and important steps. Very soon you will see the structural steel going up, and the building will be enclosed for the winter months so that the workers can continue. So the important question, time and budget. Budget, we're on track. We have spent 67% of the contingency, but we are really hoping that we are past the early phase of the project that clearly had a higher risk of the unknown. Time, we are 3 months behind schedule. Roger Rowe committed to the ad hoc that they will still make every effort to compress the construction schedule and have substantial completion in the spring. He has, however, committed to pay for city staff to stay in the professional building for 2 additional months to the end of June. Currently, we have a lease to the end of April. This is huge, and while we are disappointed in the delay, I think the committee appreciated this gesture and the commitment to keep pushing the schedule, but to also ensure a quality job. The tender for the furniture was issued last week, so we will report back with these results. And it's not in the minutes, but I have had several people ask me if it would have been cheaper to rebuild after they see the pictures. The answer is no, for several reasons. Renovating the current structure as opposed to rebuilding from scratch saved the city $3 to $4 million. The city is also committed to and invested in our downtown. The City Hall renovation and the Downtown River Precinct project, along with several other initiatives, will result in an inclusive public space and building that our city and residents can be proud of, will be accessible, and will serve our public well into the future. And with that, Your Worship, I would move approval of those minutes.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lemon?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the additional asbestos that had to be removed and the black mold, did that account for a fair amount of the contingency?
I can't tell you exactly, but it was a huge chunk. It was a lot.
I suspected it was, but I mean, those were the unknowns that, nobody knew it was there.
There was a lot more behind the scenes, for sure.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Number 11C2 is minutes of Community Services Committee held on October 18th.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. We had a recent community services meeting just a week and a half ago, so it was a rather quick meeting, so we'll quickly go through it. Our first thing that we dealt with, first report that we came across was Namwikwidong Reconciliation Garden proposed sturgeon statue. Am I correct there, Pam? All right. So there's going to be a placement of it's going to be a great sturgeon-based statue, which will be located in Kelso Beach Park. It's going to be looking as if it's almost swimming into the bay. So as you come over the bridge, it's going to be there, and it'll be into this. It looks like a stream. It's going to be facing towards the bay. This is a part of the Reconciliation Garden Committee that had presented this to the committee in the past. This installation is being funded by the Reconciliation Garden Committee, so they are looking for donations for the project, and that can be located on the Canada Helps website when you get a tax receipt if you do donate towards this project. Secondly, we looked at our Volunteer of the Year, Senior of the Year, and the new proposed Youth Volunteer of the Year. Some little bit of changes that had happened previously. We never had a Youth Volunteer of the Year award, so this was something new for the following year, or upcoming year, sorry. We did make a couple of changes and additions to some of the guidelines to qualify for the Volunteer of the Year. Previously, you had to be a resident of the City of Owen Sound to win that award. This has been modified now to kind of note that nominees for both awards will be broadened to include residents in neighboring municipalities who have volunteered extensively for our organization within Owen Sound and have helped enrich the lives of Owen Sound residents. Also for the Youth Volunteer of the Year Award, staff will be contacting the local high schools and Georgian College to get some nominations for those as well. We had the 2017 wrap-up and 2018 launch of the Cultural Awards, which will be happening again in February. That date, I think, is still being determined. Slight little variation again, 8 award categories, 7 of which are based on public nominations, and a cultural achievement in one of the Lifetime Achievement Award. And finally, we had looked at a 5-year agreement with the Active Lifestyle Center of Grey Bruce for the usage of the Bay Shore Sound and Shore Sound Rooms and the pool room and McQuay Tannery. And with that, Your Worship, would move those minutes and recommendations.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Last one is minutes of Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee from October 20th.
Well, Your Worship, after the previous 2 reports, I'm actually a little embarrassed here to say that I don't have a lot to report tonight. We had what I would term as a meeting of updates at our Economic Development Committee. We had some discussion of the Are You Most campaign, and I will say that despite my advancing years, I was honored to participate in the program a couple of weeks ago by hosting a couple from Toronto for an afternoon in downtown Owen Sound, and I knew it was all going to be okay when he showed up in a Star Trek shirt and I had my Star Trek socks on. We got on like a house of fire, and it was interesting from my standpoint to show people around Owen Sound, because it really forced me to look at things that I no longer see about our community, and it was really quite interesting. I came away with a new appreciation for all that we do have to offer here in Owen Sound. We also had a discussion about the Mayor's Growth Plan Workshop and a further update on the Downtown Revitalization study results. One thing that I did bring up in other business was an idea that Councillor Kepke brought to me and wanted to be sure that I brought up at the meeting. And she suggested that it might not be a bad idea for the City of Owen Sound to put its own population sign out on the highway that yes, indeed, it's population 22,000, but serving 45,000. It might be a little more truth in advertising in terms of what we do here in Owen Sound. And that was met well. There's a little bit of discussion there at least, and I did get the idea on the table, Councillor Kepke. And with that, Your Worship, I'll move these minutes.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Lemon, go ahead.
I think that's an excellent idea, because we really do serve a much larger area, and it might make people start to realize the whys and wherefores. I don't know whether we legally can do it, but why not? If anyone goes to jail, it's you, so that's fine.
My understanding is we cannot put anything on the MTO highway sign, but we could in fact put our own sign out there somewhere.
Thanks. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're down to 11D, minutes of closed meetings for approval from October 17th. Anyone want to move those?
So moved.
There we go. All in favor? That is carried. Minutes of the closed meeting for receipt, which is from the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, October 19th. Councillor Thomas is
So
moving
moved.
them again. All in favor? That's carried. Other business. Councillor Gregg, are you ready?
Yeah, I think I can go.
Go ahead.
I'll just read out a motion I've kind of wrote out here, that the City of Owen Sound support the concerns expressed by the Council of the Township of North Frontenac, and whereas the City of Owen Sound would be affected negatively by costs incurred on our full-time fire department, that the Council of Owen Sound supports AMO in their request that emergency services be exempted from the scheduling impacts of Bill 148, and that this resolution be submitted to the Township of North Frontenac, AMO, or MPP Bill Walker. And I'm just working on the specific ministry right now that's conducting the subcommittee hearings, because it will go to a third reading yet, which is finance, but I can't recall what the current ministry is. Could be labor, but I don't think it is the Ministry of Labor.
Ms. Bloomfield, if he leaves it like that, can you fill in the right? Councillor Gregg, you mentioned full-time fire department. Should it be full-time fire department and other staff? Because there certainly could be other staff, snow removal that could get...
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got it written out. You'll be able to give it to the clerks after.
Yeah.
Okay, council, other discussion? Going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks. Got a couple of things on other business that a whole bunch of things that I've done the last few weeks, but Friday night I attended at the Roxy Theatre. There was a great new art installation as you go into the Roxy and you go back through the double doors at the back. It will be, I don't have my note, it'll be a permanent display. It was sponsored by Ontario Trillium. It was called the Great Art for Great Lakes. There were 8 municipalities or cities around Lake Huron that were chosen for this art. It was a local artist. I should know this. I'm sticking for a name. Julia White, thank you. And her art was Ripple Effect. So she went to markets in Owen Sound, Meaford, and various other places and got people to draw images of water. And then she put these 4 posts that are made out of steel, and she's etched in all the different drawings that people have given to her, and then backlit them with these little blue lights. It's a really nice piece of art, and it's so nice there because it isn't highly lit as you go through, and so this sculpture is really special and really nice to have. And the idea is to make us think about the lakes and what they are to us, and certainly in Owen Sound, the lake is pretty important. Lake Huron is so important to our history, to our culture, to our recreation, and so is art and culture. So it's nice to be able to tie the art to the lake and have a lasting piece of art coming from 2017, 150th. That will be there permanently. So that was what I did Friday night. Sunday I attended the 17th annual Honoring Our Veterans. Our Billy Bishop home, obviously for 17 years, has honored different veterans from different wars. Many of the people were there. It's pretty special to be able to go and meet them and hear their stories. And congratulations to Billy Bishop home and to Dave Alexander, who has in his classroom as well as at the Billy Bishop home worked so hard with Jim's brother to bring the stories of past veterans alive to the next generation that maybe don't know what their grandfathers did or great-grandfathers at this point, and to get those stories passed on. So that was a great event. Going forward, we have our community roundtable here November 1st, right here in this building, I think in this room. Mr. Ritchie, can you confirm the time?
We're starting at 5 o'clock, Your Worship.
Starting at 5 o'clock, just making sure. And so anyone that wants to attend, we will have different agencies that have an interest in these issues will be there to tell us what they do and make sure we're not having anything fall between the cracks and making sure that we're not overstepping what other agencies are doing. The next day, on Thursday, November 2nd, all of council is here to start our first discussions, our first day of budget review for 2018. That's an open meeting. Anybody can attend. It too is here in this building, either in this room or next door. So That's the other thing coming up this week. So here on the 1st and here on the 2nd, and we start at 9:30. So Kate, you're telling me to be here by 9?
There will be coffee and everything available.
Good. Thank you. Number 13, unless there's anything else, seeing none, motion that the committee rise.
I would move that the committee rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We're back into the formal sessions, number 14.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kepke, that the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
Oh, sorry, were you? You're eager. Okay, all in favor? There we go. Carried. Thank you. Notices of motion. Seeing none, no new business. Bylaws.
Through your worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, 2 bylaws to execute facade and structural improvement agreements, one with Marine Martyr at 217 8th Street West and one with William Stobie for 233 8th Street East. And there's a bylaw to execute a loan agreement with the Owen Sound Housing Company respecting construction financing.
Great, thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kepke, that bylaw numbers 2017-158, 159, 160, and 161 be passed and enacted.
All in favor? That is carried. So that completes our business for tonight. It is 8:30. Thanks, everyone. Have a happy Halloween and safe Halloween.